Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the show. My name is Spencer Walsh. You're listening to The Wake Up. Thank you so much for getting on today. Really appreciate it. On today's show, we're talking about more tariffs on China from President Trump, a weekend of violence in Gaza and Israel, and a contentious decision at the Kentucky Derby on Saturday, as well as much more. So please join us, settle in, get ready to go. It's going to be a nice day for today. Hope you have a good one. I know that I will try to. So, all right. Let's get started. We start with China, where President Trump has threatened to impose more tariffs on the Chinese goods, catching Beijing by surprise before Chinese officials arrived in Washington for what was expected to be the final round of trade negotiations. So that really threw things off. Seeking further concessions, Trump warned on Sunday that he would increase tariffs on $200 billion of Chinese goods at the end of this week and shortly impose levies on hundreds of billions of dollars of additional imports. The president has been encouraged by the strength of the U.S. economy, and lawmakers in both parties have urged him not to sign a deal that doesn't address obstacles that American companies face in China. So, Trump's warning sent stocks in Asia and Europe down sharply today, and future contracts suggest that U.S. markets are also going to be opening lower this morning as well. So that is definitely something to think about when you're thinking about the economy and how good it is. But let's get deeper into this now. As a prospect of a wider trade war between the United States and China really sent global financial markets whipsawing on Monday and could force Beijing to make the difficult decisions it hopes to preserve its nascent economic recovery. Trump upended what appeared to be steady progress toward reaching a trade pact after he threatened on Sunday to impose still more tariffs on Chinese-made goods unless Beijing moves closer to a deal. Liu He, the Chinese vice premier overseeing economic policy and Beijing's lead trade negotiator, have been said to travel in Washington today with talks scheduled for Wednesday that were widely seen as the last potential round before reaching a trade deal. So, then this is what happens with Donald Trump's tweet yesterday saying, quote, "For 10 months, China's been paying tariffs to the USA of 25% on $25 billion of high-tech and 10% on $200 billion of other goods. So those payments are partially responsible for our great economic results," he says. The 10% will go up to 25% on Friday. $325 billion of additional goods sent to us by China remain untaxed, but will be shortly at a rate of 25%. The tariffs paid to the U.S. have had little impact on product costs, mostly borne by China. The trade deal with China continues, but too slowly. They attempt to renegotiate. No. That's what he says. No, I'm not having it. All right. So, earlier on Monday in China, people familiar with the talks said officials are considering whether Mr. Liu should keep his plans to visit Washington. The people spoke on condition of anonymity, obviously. The uncertainty sent global markets in. Really, on Monday, Chinese shares fell more than 6% before recovering a modest amount of ground, while Hong Kong stock market fell 2.9%. So, the threats have posed a major problem for Xi Jinping, China's top leader, who've been kind of counting on this trade deal to keep China's growth engine humming. It's kind of been slowing down as of late. So that's pretty much what he's trying to do with at this point. So China's economic growth began to slow last year as Beijing tried to tame the country's over-reliance on lending. Trump's initial tariffs last year hurt Chinese manufacturers and consumer confidence, worsening the slowdown in China's economic slowdown limited Mr. Xi's option to retaliate against American tariffs and put pressure on him to reach a deal, where we kind of have an opposite situation with a pretty vibrant recovery at this point for the future, at least for now. Yeah. All right, we turn now to the Middle East, where Palestinian officials said earlier today they'd reached a ceasefire with Israel after at least 4 Israeli civilians and 22 Palestinians, including militants, were killed over the weekend. It was the worst fighting in the region since 2014. The violence appears to have begun when a sniper wounded 2 Israeli soldiers on Friday. Palestinians then launched hundreds of rockets and missile attacks, and Israel responded with airstrikes targeting killings of fighters in Gaza. So the two sides have warred on and off since the militant group Hamas took power in 2007 and Israel imposed a blockade of the territory and roughly 2 million residents. In November, Israel agreed to loosen those restrictions. It'll be interesting to see where that goes as we continue to follow the situation a little bit more on Newsflash. That's time to get a little bit more deeper into that, explore some of the very tense issues there at play. So that is going to be something definitely worth watching. But we're going to move on now to talking about Robert Mueller. President Trump said on Sunday the special counsel should not testify before Congress, arguing that Robert Mueller's report on Russian election interference was found no conspiracy, but did not exonerate the president's obstruction of justice, was in fact conclusive. What a surprise there. He does not want Mueller to testify before Congress. So, the president argued on Twitter that Mueller's report on Russian interference found no conspiracy, found no conspiracy between Moscow and Trump's campaign, but it did not exonerate the president on obstruction of justice, was conclusive, and that Congress and the American people did not need to hear from Mueller. Bob Mueller should not testify. No redos for the Dems, he says. On Friday, Trump had said it was up to Attorney General William Barr on whether Mr. Mueller testified. The president's about face now puts new pressure on Barr, who must decide whether to accede to Trump's call last week. Barr said he had no objection to Mueller testifying. The conflict over Mueller escalates Trump's fight with the Democrats as his re-election campaign is just taking shape, and it comes on top of numerous refusals by the administration to turn over records to Congress, including a request for Trump's tax returns. Trump was also balked at testimony from his former White House counsel, Don McGahn. Those people, in my opinion, should definitely testify because we need to hear their. We definitely need to hear their side of the story there. I think it's very important to do. So, it's something that I really want to hear because there could be a whole host of things happening that we don't know about yet, and I just want to hear Mueller's perspective on it. And I feel like it would be good. Mueller, who is special counsel, is likely to finish his work this month. After that, any decision to testify before Congress would not be constrained by Barr, assuming the Mueller White House does not try to stop him. And apparently they have a date set out for May 15th. That's what the House Judiciary Committee formally invited Mueller to testify last month. A possible appearance on May 15th. No date's been confirmed yet. Separately, the House Intelligence Committee has also invited Mueller to answer any questions. So they've invited him 2 times. They're like, please come. Please come. We need to talk to you. But there has been no, not quite yet. So House Intel and House Judiciary Committee have both invited him, and May 15th is a tentative date. No, nothing confirmed yet, though, for the House Judiciary Committee. So, that's going to be all interesting to take a look on, see what he can say. Hopefully it'll be public. That'd be quite must-see TV. All right, so Europe has always been heralded as the toughest watchdog of Silicon Valley giants, clamping down on violent content, hate speech, and misinformation online with a series of laws and regulations over the past 5 years. But critics say Europe is going too far and that the rules lead to censorship and potentially provide cover for governments to stifle dissent. It's dangerous at the moment. It would be ironic, said a political activist in Germany whose Twitter account was banned over a post considered offensive that he called satire. Okay, I'm going to have to see that post first before I make a judgment on that. But the debate illustrates the difficulties that governments face trying to regulate material without restricting individual expression. And it's going to be interesting because similar things are kind of happening right now in the U.S. With the push against YouTube, the push against people like Alex Jones and people like Laura Loomer, some right-wing figures, if you don't know. In Spain, activists were convicted for social media posts that violated an expanded anti-terrorism law. The Twitter accounts of German citizens were blocked because of the rules enacted last year that prohibit hate speech. And a Dutch court determined that Google must remove search results about a doctor punished for poor performance in compliance with the privacy law. So the unintended consequences may be compounded as European governments pursue more laws and policies to restrict what communications can be shared online. Last month, Britain proposed appointing an internet regulator who would be empowered to block websites they considered harmful. The European Union is separately debating a law that would require tech companies to quickly remove terrorist-related content online. With the growing body of European legislation, there will be a lower standard for protecting freedom of expression, said David Kay, a University of California Irvine law professor, who the United Nations appointed on the spotlight government efforts to restrict free speech. He added that Europe's rules erode what has been a shared belief among the United States and other Western democracies to avoid censoring social media posts, YouTube videos, discussion forums, and other internet content. So, yeah, Europe's kind of diverging on that. And personally, I mean, I don't think, obviously, if it's like a front of violence, you gotta step in it, obviously. But I think there's certainly a case to be like, I don't think this should be taken so dramatically. I think it's kind of ridiculous and kind of disturbing that we have this level of punishment on the rise here for these people. All right, so yeah, now that we know that, let's do quick hits coming up next. Newsflash, episode 309 is going to try to possibly maybe come your way later tonight. Also, join us this week for a midweek recap of Game of Thrones. Last night, Hudson Alexander will be with us. And, of course, the Wake Up continues all this week. That's a look ahead on the Spencer Welsh Radio Network. Now, let's get back to the show. All right. Let's do it. It's time for quick hits, ladies and gentlemen. We are talking about, first, we're starting with a fiery landing in Moscow. At least 41 people were killed on Sunday when a Russian passenger jet made an emergency landing at an airport, partially engulfed in flames. There were 78 people on that plane. So that's definitely it's a rough weekend for planes, I have to say. U.S. deployment as an aircraft carrier and an Air Force bomber are being sent to the Persian Gulf because of troubling and escalatory indications and warnings related to Iran, the White House said. So that's John Bolton's work. Very chilling stuff. It's definitely worth keeping an eye on what we do and how we do it in Iran. Yeah, they're being sent to the Persian Gulf for seemingly no real reason. What did they do? We don't know. The deployment was intended to, quote, send a clear and unmistakable message to the Iranian regime that any attack on the United States' interest on those of our allies will be met with unrelenting force. The announcement did not give any further information as a reason for the commitment of the military forces. So yeah, this to me, any American who's remotely anti-war and does not want to see people getting forced into the war should be watching this very, very closely. And I think with people like John Bolton who have proven themselves to be ridiculously and ludicrously anti-war, those people, they just don't change overnight. It's just that simple. We need to keep an eye on them. These people are dangerous to the health of the country, and the fact that they're in the White House makes this reality even more true. That we need to see some sort of change here on either some kind of commitment. I don't know. It's gonna be tough, but we need to see it happening because this is definitely an incredibly worrying move. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, when asked by reporters about Bolton's statement on a flight to Finland, said, "It's something we've been working on for a while. It's absolutely the case that we've seen escalatory actions from Iranians, and it's equally the case that we'll hold the Iranians accountable for those attacks on American interests. If these actions take place, if they do by some third-party proxy, a militia group Hezbollah, we'll hold the Iranian leadership directly accountable for that." So, yeah, not very exciting to think about coming up in this next couple of years, and the violence possibly brewing with Iran. So yeah, President Trump has named Mark Morgan, a former Obama administration official, who embraced some of Trump's hardline positions on border security. to lead ICE. The plane maker has just plane maker Boeing has disclosed that it realized months after it began delivering 737 MAX jets to customers in 2017 that a cockpit light wasn't a standard feature as it should have been. Oh God.